What's up, sweaties? It's Jon Schnepp here. You're watching episode 110 of Heroes. That's right, we are live. So get your weird questions ready if we're going to do some live Twitter later. Let me introduce everybody. We've got an action-packed episode coming at you, like I said, live. Right over in the corner, we got Robert Meyer Burnett.
Hello, thank you, and I just would like to say rest in peace to Mr. Roger Moore, one of my first heroes.
Yes, that is true.
away.
Roger Moore passed away this morning at 89 from some battling cancer. He's definitely one of the greater James Bonds that we remember, as well as The Saint and all the other amazing films he was in.
I still think my favorite Bond film that he was in was Spy Who Loved Me. It was the first James Bond film I saw in the theater.
My favorite is Live and Let Die, but Spy Who Loved Me comes close. And you know what else comes close to the guy that's right next to me, Jeremy Jahns.
I do not come anywhere near close to Roger Moore. Thank you very much. Injustice shirt, leather jacket, totally James Bond.
That's right. You know, we're not going to talk about Injustice 2, but I am going to bring it up for a minute. But first, let me introduce our very special guest, Nicola Scott.
Hi, everybody.
What's going on? The
Hi.
artist of Wonder Woman. And she's here all the way from out in the back of the way. This is my horrible accent from nowhere, Australia, mate.
Throw another shrimp on the Barbie.
That's right.
But
Check
nobody ever. We don't call
Nobody-
it shrimp.
Yeah, there's no Barbie either. Where do you get Barbie? Where's Ken?
I don't
even
get
get
it.
that.
I
There's
don't
a
know.
shocker. Crocodile Dundee is not an accurate representation of Australia. I found this out recently.
That's right.
Sorry.
If you get a chance to go to Sydney, Australia, do anything that you can outside of killing somebody to get there. It is beautiful. It is great. It was an amazing trip. We've been there. Robert was there doing Superman. I was there promoting my Superman doc. So if you're involved in a Superman something, you should definitely. That's what we're trying to say. Is if you like Superman, go to Australia.
And if you like country music, go to Tamworth, Australia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good country music scene.
Yeah.
Well, let's get right into it.
People are like, what?
Let's talk about the news. The news that just hit like yesterday, which was pretty shocking. Zack Snyder has exited Justice League. That's right. He's not involved anymore. Some unfortunate news as we learned that Zack Snyder has left the post-production aspect part of Justice League in the months following his daughter's unfortunate suicide in March. He and his wife, Deborah, decided to spend time with their other 6 children, and they have handed off rewrites, reshoots, and post-production to Joss Whedon. Now, like, this came out of left field. It's shocked me when I read it. I was like, what the hell? I mean, what is going on here? And this is because for months and months and months, we've heard about Justice League is plagued with reshoots. Justice League is plagued with this. It went into production after the critically, trounced Batman v Superman. Is it going to be like this? It's going to be like that. So everyone, including myself, had some high worries about Justice League and what is it going to be like. I'm a Zack Snyder fan as far as a lot of his films. I think Watchmen is incredible. I loved his Night of the Living Dead, his Dawn of the Dead. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think he's a fantastic director. Some things more so than others. And like, look, I think Man of Steel was a lot of fun. The problems I had were not with anything that Zack Snyder did as far as directing. Batman v Superman I have a lot of issues with, but I'm looking forward to seeing Justice League, and none of it was really like Zack Snyder approached. And I can't wait to see Wonder Woman. Let me throw it to you, Nicola. What are your thoughts about this changeover?
Yeah, look, I think this is a really huge story for so many different reasons. You know, it's sort of such an enormous shuffle in what is for DC and Warner Brothers, one of their primary big tentpoles coming up. So to have have a sort of structural shift at the high end this late in the date. But at the same time, I think it's the right thing for the Snyders to do. I think this film might actually benefit from like a clear eye for finessing the sort of the final streak towards the release date. And it's fascinating that it gets to be Joss Whedon, who is clearly sort of becoming part of the Warner Brothers family in the sort of, new movie slate anyway. From what I understand, he'd already sort of written a few extra scenes. Mm-hmm. For him to sort of be taking over, it's got to be an interesting position to put him in, where he's essentially creating the competition film for his own properties.
Right.
So it's a really sort of multi-layered, and it sort of really highlights mental health, really. Sort of the Snyders sort of doing the right thing by themselves and their family. For their, the mental health of their family and themselves. I like what Snyder was sort of saying, that he thought it might be cathartic to just work through it.
Right.
And that just wasn't working.
Right.
And I understand that because, when my mother died a number of years ago, I was in a similar position where it was like I was right under, like, one of the biggest deadlines sort of series that I've worked on. I was working on Blackest Night, Wonder Woman. And, she passed away during that. And I found sort of working through it was the sort of great way to just not wallow too much. And it meant that by the time I was done with that job, a little bit of time had passed and I could just take a break and a breather, and it wasn't so overwhelming. So I kind of understand that, but at the same time, there's too much for them coming up for, them to really lean into that too much. I think it's great that they've put themselves out.
Well, this happened in March, then we have April, and now we're in May. So I think they did try it, but I think it's a really brave thing to do what they did. And it's a very public thing.
Yeah.
I mean, no one wants to have to deal with anything involving suicide. We just had a horrible possible suicide with Chris Cornell, where, we don't know if it was like, obviously, the prescription drugs were involved because it was, there's all these kinds of things that end up happening that you're not, you can't even think that way if you're not suicidal. You don't even understand why people do those kinds of things. That's a lot to deal with. Then put on the entire, Justice League and all this, a giant public film where there's already a perception about you and people are like, cracking on you on every level possible. I think it's a brave thing that the Snyders decided to do it publicly, and also to get someone like Joss Whedon into the mix, someone who's already done this twice with 2 giant Avengers films. Obviously, they brought Joss in earlier to do some rewrites. I don't know when that was and how that all timed out, but if there's anyone that makes anybody who cares about Justice League feel, look, it's in the right hands, it's another person who's not only capable, but incredibly capable of taking something that and finishing it to completion. And I think that's the other thing too, is they wanted to make sure it's like it's gonna stay Zack Snyder's film, and Joss is simply helping and coming, like, pinch hitting is basically how I look at it.
Yeah, I think
like
so,
coming
too.
in at a time of need to help out. Like, these are the real super friends. These are the people who actually make the fantasy things that we enjoy watching. Remember, every single person who makes this stuff, they're real. They have a real life. They have families. They have husbands and wives and kids and friends that they sacrifice to make this kind of stuff. Making a film, making a television show, everything is time away from your regular life. So when you're in this kind of intense, very brutal post-production process where it's rewrites, it's editing, it's reshooting, it's so intensive, and to have this kind of tragedy on the top of it, I think it's not only a brave thing, but it's the right thing to do. Robert?
Well, I can't agree with you more. I mean, look, we live in a very privileged society. I mean, in terms of as far as humanity goes, the fact that we have entertainments, that we have comic books, that we have films, that we have these great things that we can consume as viewers, and these flights of fancy that mean so much to us and have since we were kids, is a privilege in itself. And the fact that we have filmmakers and things that are doing these kinds of works, and we have companies, publicly held companies like Warner Brothers, who are making these things, is an amazing thing. But it doesn't mean anything if you don't have your loved ones around you and you don't have family, because what do these stories do but illuminate the human condition? And when you're dealing with comic book characters, I mean, hopefully it's an uplifting thing. It should be a happy thing. It should bring people joy. And that's what these filmmakers are doing. And so often we forget. I mean, it's so easy to bag on these filmmakers. Oh, they didn't give me the thing that exactly I wanted. It wasn't tailored to my sensibility. And I've been guilty of this. I've talked about this with J.J. Abrams' Star Trek movies. But, they're simply just movies. And there's so much work and time and effort that people put in. But all of that goes by the wayside when it comes to taking care of the people that are close to you. What do movies matter? At the end of the day, who cares? Right. If you don't have family and you don't have friends and you don't have loved ones, what is your life really all about? And it's certainly not about movies.
Right.
Movies are not the most important thing in the world. I think the most important thing in the world is to feel a connection to another person, and feel that for the brief moment we spend on this planet that we mattered to somebody else.
Most definitely. Well put. What are your thoughts on this, Jeremy?
Yeah, my brain spins in like 100 miles an hour because it's not just one story. It's like 7 different things to talk about here. So I'm not going to talk about all of it. It's just the way it's going to go. But it really does show the magnitude. I mean, I don't know how someone can, his daughter committed suicide in March, right? It was March. And so I don't know how someone presses on with their day-to-day and does their job, which as a director, and doesn't tell anyone, like really just puts on face and says, I'm going to go about it and I'm going to push through it and no one's going to know about it. I just don't know how they do that. Like because morbidly, if a tragedy hit my family, I'd be like, I need time, you know? So I don't know how he did it in the first place. So that's a strong thing in that sense, but it's also a stronger thing to be like you guys said, like, no, family comes first. Like any director out there, any person out there, when they're on their bed and they're about to pass, I don't think 99.9999% of people are not going to be like, I want to be surrounded by the Blu-ray of the movies that I directed. They're not going to do that. They're going to be like, I want my family around, you know? So he has perspective as to what matters and the fun thing. And I get trying to push through work and that is certainly a thing to do. And it wasn't working for him. And so he's like, I gotta step off. It's such a real story that you almost can't fathom it. It's like too heavy. But I think he did the right thing, honestly. Just long story short, he did exactly what he should do.
Well, and Warner Brothers, to their credit, you know, we frequently are always talking about how it's sort of rudderless over there in terms of the film. If there was one person to replace him, to step in and finish, they made the best.
Yeah.
They made the best decision they could possibly have made. It's unassailable, what they've done. And I think that in order to protect their investment and to protect the audience's investment and everybody's hopeful enjoyment of this film. I mean, I've wanted to see a Justice League movie since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see this movie. And look, the post-production process, the movie has been shot. I mean, he directed the film, and I'm sure he will be consulting. It's not like he's going to, walk away.
Right.
But it's always nice to have another set of eyes in the edit bay.
Most definitely.
And all this is going to do, in my mind, is going to make the movie even that much better and more of a celebration of all of their work and the cinematic DC universe. And I think more than anything that this movie will stand as a testament to the joy that we should all feel when we watch these films. I mean, I sometimes think, am I in the cutthroat world of Wall Street, the way people talk about this stuff? I mean, we're supposed to like this stuff. It's supposed to enrich our lives. We're supposed to have fun with it.
Yeah.
And so often it's like, I'm not getting what I want. I'm like, really? I'm getting a Justice League movie.
And also, while the story sort of concentrates on Zack stepping away, his wife Deborah is one of the producers on it, and she's a pretty hands-on producer. So this is like both parents focusing on this project. While the announcement is about Zack stepping away, I'm sure Deborah's needing to step away as well.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
No, I included her in saying they're both walking away because Deborah's also incredibly involved with Wonder Woman. As Zack, as they're both produced it.
And they have like 7 kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Now they have 6, and they're like, look, we need to be there for our kids. So from everyone here at Heroes, our hearts go out to the Snyders and their family, and we hope that you recover great, and we're looking forward to seeing the Justice League film that you made, so we'll all be there for you.
Absolutely.
Let's speak on to some other things I wanted to cover. Speaking of Justice League, the video game Injustice 2 came out, and I haven't played it yet. I know some sweaties over here, like Jeremy, played it in one day. He got through the entire thing. Before we even met up in Vegas, you were like, dude, I did it. I had 0 sleep. You had destroyed the game in one night.
Yeah, I wasn't even done with the game, but I did get 0 sleep. And when I was in Vegas, and all I wanted to do was go back home and farm that gear in the multiverse. That's all I did. But I just put up my review for it, right before I came here. It's a great game. It's like a great game. I don't know what you wanted to speak on.
Who's your favorite playable character?
I really like what they did with the Joker's play style in this one. I like Joker, Superman, Supergirl. I haven't even played everybody. Amazingly, Cheetah is good, and I'm not good at all with Green Arrow or Captain Cold, which means they kick my ass when the computer uses them, because I'm like, they're not, they are good. Look at that, So who knew? But I mean, it's hard to pick one, and that's the best thing I can say about the game. I can't lock into one character and be like, oh, that's my character. There's a plethora of characters that are great.
The game itself, I have not played. It's like Mortal Kombat style. You're like, side scrolly, punchy, jumpy stuff and whatnot. But check it. Like on YouTube, somebody put all the cutscenes together, and it's like 2 hours and 45 minutes. I was just thumbing around. I was like, let me check this thing out. My mind was blown.
It's good.
But how incredibly amazing. And look, that's how Tim Miller, before he directed Deadpool, he directed that really badass Justice League 5-minute opener where Lex Luthor shows up in the battle armor. Is like, come with me, I need you from this other future where everyone's fighting each other. And it's like, I mean, if you haven't seen that, I mean, you guys all are shaking.
amazing.
You've seen it. It's
Yeah.
incredible. This is plussed. They plussed it. They did. Everybody kind of almost looks realistic. It's realistic as 3D can get.
And
You know,
the
there's
character designs are really
the character
cool.
designs are cool.
Really
and I got to
good.
say, it's really well directed. I found myself really engaged watching this, and I watched like 45 minutes. I was like, what the hell am I doing? I'm watching this.
You're watching a
this
video game cutscene, right? It's great.
What's wrong with me? So I stopped. I felt like somehow shaming myself, yelling at myself like a weird, strange adult nerd. I don't know what was wrong with me. Cut to Campia's on screen, does a little review of it. So I like half watched his review. I was like, I'm gonna watch the whole thing. I don't want this guy to spoil it for me. John, shut up! Don't tell me the whole thing. He didn't. It's not a spoiler review. It's enough that it made me go back and watch it. So I watched the whole 2 hours and 45
Nice.
minutes.
Jeez.
And I loved it.
It's good.
It was
Now I'm
so
fascinated. I
It
wanna
was
watch.
so much fun.
Yeah.
It's so well done. If you haven't gotten a chance to check it out, go on YouTube. It's just Injustice 2, whatever, all the cutscenes, or a bunch of sweaties have put it together. Somebody's like, I put the alternate versions. You can watch separate little scenes if you don't want to watch 2 hours and 45 minutes. But I guarantee you, it's a well spent 2 hours and 45 minutes after you've watched our show, of course. So definitely check it out. If you haven't gotten a chance to, I highly recommend at least the movie version of Injustice 2. Have any of you guys gotten a chance to watch some of these cutscenes?
Not me.
No?
Oh,
Robert?
Dude, I started in on that rabbit hole just last night. I didn't realize it was going to be that long.
It's super long. Yeah.
You know, because when you look on YouTube and you see how long something is, sometimes you don't. Like, because I've been editing and I've been,
Yeah.
I wasn't paying. And
There's no way is it to
and then you realize you've been watching for like a half an hour and the YouTube indicators barely moved.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, how long? What am I in for? And then I'm like, damn it, because I would have been locked in. I would have watched the whole thing. I'm under a horrible.
I love the
deadline. I
Supergirl
can't.
story.
Yeah.
the way,
I
know, right?
the way they weave it together. We're no spoilers because you haven't seen it, but now
Yeah.
you're going to have to sweat on the ride back
No, I
to
can't
Australia.
help it. Yeah, now
you
I
only
need
got
to
like
see it.
15 hours.
Like I'm
right?
not a game player, but I do love watching all that footage because it doesn't make me want to play the game, but it makes me want to watch the show.
Well, there's 2 hours and 45 minutes of show.
That'll
so
do me.
It's pretty
And
good.
there's also comic books that tie in with the game. So
Right.
they work in tandem. It's like comic book game, comic books game, you know? So you're getting a section of the story that the comic books haven't
Right.
done.
This might
Right.
get you so sweaty, you might be like, I need to get on this and
You're so
draw
gonna
the
get
next
Injustice
season
too. You're gonna
8
get it.
of Injustice or something. Who knows? Well, guess what's going to be happening next? Tom Hardy's Venom. That's right, freakies. Tom Hardy is Venom. It's weird to even say that. I need to say it a third time. Tom Hardy is Venom. The Sony Spider-Verse is moving forward with a Venom movie, and it's got Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock, and it's going to be directed by Ruben Fleischer. Will this succeed without being tied to Spider-Man is my big question. I mean, can Sony make this work without Marvel? I mean, we've seen them do the first 3 Spider-Mans with Sam Raimi. Then we saw 2 more Spider-Mans. And now we see a new Spider-Man that we haven't seen yet. Spider-Man, Tom Holland as Spider-Man. We saw him in Civil War. Fantastic. So, the less said about the amazing Spider-Man 2, the better, at least in my eyes.
Yeah.
So I was happy they rebooted it, but they gave it back to Marvel, and now we get to see what all of us really kind of wanted to see is Spider-Man in the Marvel Universe, which just works. It just fits. And we haven't even seen the movie yet. We just saw like a little nuggety taste of it, and I was like, that's perfect. So now we're seeing Venom, this character that his origin is tied in with Spider-Man. Without Spider-Man, there is no Venom. But I guess in this world, they can separate these things. They can make, obviously, there's a ton of different Venom properties. There's Venom Space Knight. There's Venom Noir. There's all these different versions of Venom that are not actually the true Venom. And even if they are going with the true Venom, Eddie Brock, are they going to use Spider-Man in any way? Are they going to hint at it? What are your thoughts, Jeremy?
Something hit me as you were monologuing just now. Like just now as you were monologuing, I'm thinking, all right, so Tom Holland's Spider-Man is going to go back to Sony at some point, right? What if this movie takes place after that fact? Like what if it takes place, let's say 10 years after Civil War, and that Spider-Man, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, when he was older, got that black suit, it goes to Eddie Brock, and it's ultimately showing the end game of that, which you will see then the Tom Holland Spider-Man go up and match to it. What if? What if, Schnepp? This is a comic book movie world.
I like
we
that.
love hypothesizing.
I like that.
What if?
I like that. What if? I'll what if you even further. I
Do it.
think that this is a game.
You think it's
a
a game?
power game? It's a power play that Sony's like flexing. They're doing a little. We got the Sinister Six. We can make a Sinister Six movie without Spider-Man. Would that be stupid? Yes. But they could do it if they wanted to. They're threatening to make a Black Cat, Silver Sable movie. I mean, I think that sounds goofy to me. without Spider-Man. I'm sort of like, some of these characters need to have the other
Opposition,
character.
right.
Like, I mean, it would almost be like the Joker's. Like, we're making this separate Joker universe without Batman. You'd be like, wait a minute, wait. You
Well,
don't
I
have
feel like a
Batman?
Joker universe could work way before a Venom universe could, because the general audience is fully educated on the Joker. But the general audience doesn't give a shit about Venom. You know, who the hell
Right.
is this character that looks like a rabid Spider-Man?
Well, I mean, I agree and I disagree, because without Batman, the Joker's the yin yang to Batman.
Sure.
So, I mean, in that way, yes, I agree. I disagree with you, but I do agree that the regular people who don't know comic books would be like, well, who's this guy with the weird tongue? You know, it's like, exactly. Robert?
Well, I've always thought, Venom is sort of the if Spider-Man was infected by a chest burster, the xenomorph from Aliens, Venom is what would have come out of Spider-Man, which is
Right.
kind of what happened. Because
Yeah.
if I remember correctly, the origin of Venom was during Secret Wars when the Beyonder took all the Marvel villains and all the Marvel heroes to this world to fight on.
What was his name again?
What was whose name? The
Beyonder?
Beyonder.
Yeah, I just want to say the Beyonder.
The Beyonder.
One of the
So-
dumbest names ever.
So
the Beyonder.
So
Yeah.
apparently this world has nothing on it except this weird alien symbiote.
That's right.
That the Beyonder must have put there for a reason. So it's like the Beyonder was kind of like the
Trying
Michael
to hook 'em up.
Fassbender. Yeah,
Yeah.
he wanted Spider-Man to get infected. I mean, are they going to have that? Like, how are they going to explain? I mean, Venom was always sort of a goofy, gimmicky, weird. Like when they were started to do die-cut covers, somebody came up with this idea, and it was this wacky. I mean, it was as wacky as Secret Wars 2.
Right.
When the Beyonder's wearing the, Miami Vice white linen coat
Yeah.
when he comes down to
Jerry
America.
curl. He had the
to
Jerry
the
curl
Jerry
going
curl to
on.
hang out. And he brought Venom. And I've never, ever in my life taken Venom seriously as a character.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then when Carnage comes along, I mean, hey, Venom makes a great action figure. Carnage, great action figure too. But I've never taken them seriously. But they did say it was going to be this R-rated horror treatment of this character. But I don't know how you do a Venom movie without explaining who the Beyonder is, where Secret Wars happened, and how it was an alien symbiote that came from where. I mean, I know in Spider-Man 3 they kind of did it, but not really well.
Well, I think you just answered your own question. How they do it is they never refer to the Beyonder. They never refer to
course
Spider-Man.
not.
And it's just like Eddie Brock is like a janitor, like working somewhere, and then some black gloop, like what's happening? My mouth is a giant, I mean, obviously it wouldn't be that corny.
So he's going to look like Nomak in Blade 2. He's like the Guillermo del Toro version of Spider-Man. How is he going to explain his logo? Why does he have a spider logo on his chest?
That was a bummer that in
Yep.
Spider-Man 3 he never had that logo.
No.
It pissed
No.
me off.
It bummed me out,
pissed
too.
so much.
Because
Yeah.
that's not really Venom.
And
No,
guess
because
what?
why would it be a spider?
They
I
had a
get it.
ton of designs, like in the actual concept book for Spider-Man 3. Yes, I flipped through it. I don't own it. But the actual concept designs, they had the actual full-on Venom, and I guess somebody was like, no. I don't know why they said no, because it would have been cool.
It would have been cool. Now, what do you think? Like, I know you're a comic book artist.
Yeah.
Do you get seriously geeky about this kind of stuff? Do you get deep sweaty and really think about the wait a minute, if Wonder Woman does this, then she really shouldn't have that? Do you ever reach a point where you're like, this isn't right?
It depends on the character. Certainly for Wonder Woman, absolutely. With Venom, I couldn't give a shit. It's like...
But do you have a character?
I kind of like the visual. I think
Right.
I understand, the freakiness of it. And I feel like if they made this a horror movie and let it kind of be its own thing, the casting of Tom Hardy sort of insinuates that that's kind of where they're going. I find Tom Hardy an incredibly sort of intense, dynamic figure to watch.
Oh, yeah.
His mumbling drives me crazy. I need to get him a voice coach immediately.
Did you see Taboo?
I haven't seen it
It
yet.
is so good.
Is it better?
It's
Is
so
Can
good.
you understand him?
You can. He still mumbles, but he's such a badass in this. If you haven't seen Taboo, that's 8 episodes of flavor that you need to ingest immediately. It's so good.
Well, if you, if it's Bronson meets Taboo,
Yeah.
that's what
That'll do it.
I want to see.
I want to see that so bad. And when they announced Tom Hardy as Venom, all of a sudden I want to see a Venom movie.
I do too.
Like Venom was not on my list. I was like, yeah, Venom without Spider-Man, get out of here. Now I'm like Tom Hardy as Venom without Spider-Man. I'm like, you got me intrigued.
Yeah.
And it's simply because of the power of Tom Hardy. Like he's such a good actor.
And I feel like they can design a suit that doesn't have to have a spider motif on it.
Right.
It's just it's a black creature with a scary tongue and a big mouth.
Although that's the important that's the important thing about Tom Hardy being cast in this movie. That's why it's a story, because anyone who was like, is now like, well, I'm at least interested.
Totally.
And I mean, I was a big Spider-Man fan in the 90s, so Venom's a big part of Spider-Man in the 90s. So I know Venom, and I agree. It takes away from a huge element of his character to not have him linked to Spider-Man. It's like that's where his hate comes from.
Right.
He's a rejected like girlfriend or something, or a boyfriend. You
and
know,
the
like,
symbiote too. They both have to hate Spider-Man.
yeah, right. So they found this common enemy. It's like, oh, you hate Spider-Man, I hate Peter Parker. Hey, let's do it. Let's kill this asshole, right? So it takes away a huge part of that. But to see him just go vigilante and eat brains could be entertaining. And with Tom Hardy, you're right, it could be intense. So we'll see what happens.
You know what I want to be really intense? It's Wonder Woman, and it explodes across screens in like 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
We got this beautiful lady here from Australia who is one of the artists of Wonder Woman. She's going to be seeing it this week. Advance word from everybody, all the regular people who've gotten a chance to see this. Some critics who aren't supposed to talk about it, you know, spreading out the word. I'm reading it. Everyone's
there
saying,
embargo?
Yeah, I guess there's an embargo. I'm not talking about it. I haven't seen it. But I guess I'm going to see it with the regular people, which is how it should be. But you know what? For those people who do get a chance to see it, everyone who has seen it is loving it.
I haven't heard one bad note.
That's what's exciting.
Not one bad note.
It's really exciting. I mean, especially they keep dropping these like little trailers where I'm like, I keep refusing. I'm not going to watch it. And then I watch it. I was like, oh my God, that was good.
Well, all those clips, they drop like 7 clips. I'm like, I'll watch one. And then I'm like, oh, I had to watch all of them.
Yep.
I found someone who
serious.
sort of put them all together on one YouTube stream, and I watched them on rotation for about 3 hours.
Were you stoked?
Wow.
I was stoked. Are you kidding me? I was like at a convention, you know, suffering from conflu, but at night I was in my room just watching this on a loop, just going, oh my God, give me more.
You know
Right.
what
So
else
this is what you do now, right? At conventions, the fist.
Oh, yeah, boom.
Yeah. None of this.
Yeah. I know.
What? The hand is wet.
They got
the
me.
hand is wet. You gotta, if you're
I
gonna
was
shake
super
somebody's
infected.
hand, just dry your hand off. That's all. Anybody who asks, just make sure the hand is dry. But
Yeah.
you know what? You've been drawing Wonder Woman for how many years now? Like quite about a
Sort
year
of
and a
on
half.
and off.
Right.
I've been drawing her kind of since I arrived at DC. You know, when I got there over 10 years ago,
Hmm.
they knew that Wonder Woman was my favorite character, and so every writer I worked with would kind of squeeze her in a story here and there. And I've been offered runs on Wonder Woman a couple of times that I've sort of said no to previously, just because either, you know, I just don't feel like I'm the right fit for the direction that the writer wants to take her in. And Greg Rucka and I had been talking about doing a Wonder Woman origin story for as long as we've known each other, which is, you know, over 10 years now. But we've been talking about it in a bubble, like in a completely hypothetical bubble. And then last year, out of complete nowhere, DC came to us and asked us to do it. And it was so exciting. We had to put our own, create our own project on hold to do it. It was so exciting, but it was also the most emotionally overwhelming project I've ever worked on, because it is absolutely my dream project. But to sort of find myself having to deliver on my own dream project freaked me out. Yeah. So I spent the whole time working on it, laboring over every decision. And anytime people would say to me, oh my God, you must be so excited, I'd be like, I can't wait until it's done. And all I have to do is just sign books from now on. But you know, I'm now in that position.
But you have not seen the movie yet.
I have not seen the movie yet.
You're just like us. You've seen
Yeah.
clips. You're like, what? I wonder
Has
what this
anyone else
movie's
seen
gonna-
it?
No.
I haven't.
You haven't
We're
seen
all,
it?
we're all normal folk here.
Some
just
lucky
speculating.
people have seen it, but you're going to go see it in like 2 days.
Yeah, I'm going to the premiere.
So that's going to be really
So
exciting.
that's
You and
pretty
Liam.
exciting.
Liam
Liam's
Sharp
be
is going to be there.
A lot of past Wonder Woman creators are going to be there. I know everyone was invited. I know a lot of people can't make it. Like I know Greg can't make it. I know Stags can't make it, which is a shame. But you know, there's going to be a whole bunch of us there. I'm, of course, really looking forward to seeing the film. I'm super jazzed. I'm looking forward to meeting Linda Carter, because I haven't met her before.
That's amazing.
Are you going to spin around when you meet her?
I think I'm going to explode in emotional.
Yeah, just don't pass out. That's
Yeah.
what you're-
I'm a little. Yeah, I'm going to be a little.
I just
embarrassed.
moderated a panel with
She's-
Kat Skaggs, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
A thing panel.
She's a
but
sweetheart.
yeah, she's amazing. So who else? George Perez. They're going to have him. in
I'm sure he's invited. Whether or not he can go, because I know he's had some health issues recently. Phil Jimenez is going to be there. It's going to be great. But I like at this convention that I was just at, I met a girl who was clearly a Wonder Woman fan. She was dressed up in Wonder Woman cosplay. And like I was saying to everyone there, you know, who looked like they had an in with Wonder Woman, was like, are you excited for the movie? And she was like, no, I don't think I'm going to see it. And I was like, what? Why? And she was like, oh, I'm not a fan of the casting. And I was like, oh, honey, no. No. And, you know, she was there with her husband and with her best mate. And I just kind of berated her a little bit. But just sort of saying that this film it's so important because it's, you know, it's Wonder Woman. We've been waiting for this for 75 years. She hasn't had an on-screen presence, live-action on-screen presence for 40 years. Mm-hmm. And this is the first time in the sort of modern, current film universe that a female lead is in a superhero film, that it's being directed by a woman, that a woman is having a budget of over $100 million. We have to support this. We have to celebrate it, or otherwise we're not going to get a sequel. We're not going to get, you know, it will put in doubt Batgirl. It will put in doubt or sort of restructure Captain Marvel. This is such an important movie. There's so much weight on its shoulders. So to hear everybody buzzing about it, saying that it's great, is such a huge relief, but that much more exciting.
Yes.
Wasn't it weird though when there's something unique to fandom?
Yeah.
Where they're so quick to be like, oh, I'm not going to go see this movie because the person I wanted to be in it isn't playing the character. And I'm like, how many times do we have to hear that? Like, you know, Heath Ledger's going to suck as the Joker.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
Hugh Jackman, he's too tall to be Wolverine. Now everybody's crying about his last movie.
I mean,
like 17
Gal
years
Gadot
later.
she was ex-Israeli military. There's no actress in the world who could probably be more of a badass than she can.
Yeah.
And like, it's such a weird thing to me. Like, people haven't seen the movie and you want to pillory it before it's,
Well,
know?
I think all the haters are going to have to suck it when this movie comes out because they're going to be like, Gal Gadot is incredible, and I was stupid to say anything otherwise.
By the way, did you see that Hot Toys sculpture of her face? Can you not wait to get that figure?
That's the first time I love all the Hot Toys, but I don't have
Oh,
any. But
right,
this
a
is the first
fellow
time that
Hot
it's like,
Toy sweaty.
I'm getting one. I'm getting one.
How
I'm
great was
getting
that
I
face?
can't wait. It's so
It
beautiful.
didn't even have the hair yet. Did you see it?
No.
We're huge Hot Toys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, I know.
and I mean, I saw that face. I'm like, this is amazing. And then somebody else put up her armor. And I'm like, oh, I don't.
Yeah.
See, now I'm
Come
When's it
on.
coming out?
It'll probably come out like in a year, which I
Yeah.
can't stand.
2019.
Give it to me now.
Yeah, that's kind of a long wait if you care about that kind of stuff.
I do.
Anyway, no, I'm just kidding. I'm not on the Hot
I
Toys
love that you
train
love
yet.
Hot
Right.
Toys.
I ordered the Joker Batman weirdo variant one, like
yeah.
the weird Jared Leto. It hasn't shown up yet, but it's the Jared Leto like green
Yeah, amazing.
Ben Affleck one, just because it's bizarre and
Yeah, it's
stupid.
strange.
But I also like it. But it's like that's what I like hearing these guys get extra weird and sweaty about. Like, look at the face. It's a little face. Why are you
But
getting
it's
so
a
weird about it?
perfect little
But it
face.
looks so real.
It looks so real. The eyes are like.
Does it look like that?
It looks just like that.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact.
You know
Just like
what's crazy about it is the DX ones where you can move the eyeballs, just
Oh,
doing
yeah.
this, and then you move it and it goes like that. You're like, "Ugh."
That's so creepy.
And what's funny is people come to your house and they look at your like display or whatever, and they're like, are the eyes moving?
Yeah, right.
Well,
Like,
they're
are
not
they
moving
moving
it. They're not
with me?
following you. That's what they've got to do next.
Yeah,
To
Yeah.
make them,
follow you around like
Right.
have their head move.
Or they just have a little chain where if this chain falls off, it will kill you. Do never let the chain, like Trilogy of Terror or whatever.
I'm telling you.
One of those Wonder Woman clips had I was wondering, are they going to use the theme in the movie?
Oh,
and
and
she's
they
battling
did.
and using. I was like, yes.
Yeah, I started like squealing in my
Actually,
hotel
that was a clip from the movie.
Yeah.
And then the theme pops
Yeah.
in and you're
When
like,
she's
all right.
battling the Nazis in
Yeah,
the room.
totally watch that clip.
But
I'm
there's
trying to not
also-
watch all these clips.
Yeah,
and
I
end up
don't
watching-
watch clips. I
It's
can't.
unavoidable. But there's been a lot of talk about, you know, how they're hiding Gal Gadot's acting in the trailers and in the, and I don't think they have. I think
No.
I think if anything, they're sort of not giving her a lot of sort of dialogue space in the trailers, because the trailers is what the general audience will see.
Yeah.
And maybe the general audience isn't ready for or sort of prepared for a heavily accented Wonder Woman.
Right.
You know, their memory is Linda Carter, All American Girl.
Right.
And so maybe they're just sort of soft shoeing them into sort of, you know, Wonder Woman isn't actually an American character. And so it's a little bit of that. But the reacting that you see from her in all the trailers is adorable. You know, every time she's reacting to something else that someone else is saying.
Right.
It's hilarious. I'm just completely smitten with her.
I can't wait to see those scenes with her and Etta Candy hanging
Oh
out.
my God, Etta
that's-
Candy's the best.
Yeah. So, I mean, all right, everybody, get your tickets, pre-order that stuff. We all know Wonder Woman is going to be pretty awesome, pretty exciting. Just how awesome, how exciting is it going to be? You get to see it in 2 days. We got to wait a week, maybe 2 weeks, but we're going to see it. Let's move on to Minor Mutations. So we're going to talk about a bunch of different stuff, and then we'll decide what we want to actually really talk about. Here's the list for this week, Minor Mutations. Fassbender is returning as Magneto. I used to call him Magneto in Dark Phoenix. Agent Coulson, is he going to be the new Ghost Rider? I don't know, but they are making a 5th season, and Ghost Rider's still part of it. Number 3, we've got an incredible Wonder Woman poster of her holding a tank, and I'm going to own that. That is badass. Number 4, we've got James Wan is looking to produce brand new Resident Evil films, and you know that's a guilty pleasure for me, so I'm going to watch any of those. Number 5, we've got Universal Monsters. That's right, they're getting their very own dark universe. And 6, we've got Lockjaw. Let's see him. There he is. First pick from the Inhumans. That looks a lot like Lockjaw. I don't need to see a tuning fork. He has a little bit of white flavor on his head. I want a giant Lockjaw so bad I can scream. Number 7, we have got Spider-Man. That's right, the old theme from Michael Giacchino. There's a YouTube clip of him rocking a full orchestra playing
awesome.
the Spider-Man theme. The Spider-Man. It's so awesome and so fun that all of us are sweating and placing bets as whether it's going to be in the movie. Does it start the movie? Is it in the middle of a montage? Is it the end of the movie? We don't know, but we hope it's in the movie because it's great. And finally, that's right, Judge Dredd, Mega City 1 could possibly have Carl Urban playing Judge Dredd. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here. Judge Dredd, Mega City 1 could possibly have Carl Urban. Now, look, if you didn't get a chance to see Dredd 3D in the theaters in 3D, I'm sorry for you because you missed out on quite an incredible experience. Yes, it's very similar to The Raid, and yes, it's actually very different from The Raid. The Raid is one of my favorite all-time action films. The Rad. And the
Rad 2 Barandal, because it's so rad.
The Rad 2 Barandal, you watch both of those, you don't have to do anything for a week. You won't be able to move. You'll be like frozen by the amazing action in it. Dredd 3D was so much fun for different reasons, though. I loved this interpretation of Dredd. I loved seeing all of the characters in it. I loved Mama. I loved the entire, you got to walk your way up. I loved the slow-mo drug and the art scenes. I felt like when I got out of that after seeing it in 3D, and I saw it the second to last day of it playing in theaters, because I also was like, nah, I don't know if I'm going to see it. And then finally, I was like, I got to see it in 3D. What's wrong with me? Saw it, and then I remember like Facebooking and every single social media. You've got to. I was telling all my friends, you've got to go see it in the theater because the 3D was incredible. I want a poster of the just 3D moments.
Yeah,
the frozen moments of slow mo in time. Didn't make a lot of money. It was kind of a failure, unfortunately. The movie could have been because of the marketing. I thought the marketing was horrible. See the movie. It's one of the always, live, die, and repeat. It's fucking Edge of Tomorrow, whatever the hell it's called. The movie itself is great. The marketing was horrible. Same thing with Dredd. Marketing just it didn't get through to people why they should see this movie. So if you get a chance to see Dredd just on regular TV without the 3D, it's still incredible. See it. I love Carl Urban as Dredd. I thought he personified the Dredd character. Nicola, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, out of all the stories, that's the one that really speaks to me. We saw it opening weekend. Dredd's one of my husband's favorite characters. Blown away by the movie because it's such a trip. It's so not what we expected at all. If they're not going to get sequels, I'm glad that there is a television treatment on its way. If Carl Urban can come back, that would be great. I would really love it if the actress playing Anderson
yeah,
came
she
back
was
as
great.
well. I loved her.
And just those scenes with her, I'm glad you brought it up because I was like, I'm talking too much, but I'm glad you brought that up because I love those scenes
She's fantastic. Yeah, she's the one that I've got my fingers crossed for. And, if they can make it a limited series, something 8 episodes, that'd be fantastic.
Definitely. Robert?
Oh, look, I'm with you 100%. And they put Dredd's coming out in 4K, which I can't wait for. I don't know if it's not 4K 3D, but the 3D Blu-ray of Dredd is amazing. I mean, it's so good.
Wow.
And you should there's a great bootleg 3D, great bootleg 12-inch, 6-scale figure of the Carl Urban
really?
Dredd. You really need it.
Nice.
It's awesome.
6-scale
I've talked
figures,
about that in the
friends,
past
yeah.
before, but there was something else I really wanted to talk about on Minor Mutations, but you didn't mention it, which was Black Lightning.
Oh, of course.
We didn't talk about the Black Lightning trailer.
Oh, yeah.
Can I talk about the Black Lightning trailer?
For sure. I didn't see it yet.
I thought it looks great. The premise is Black Lightning is now like a dad. He was Black Lightning in the past, and now the world has changed, and now he's older, and he's going to be Black Lightning again to help his daughters out. I'm like, this looks great. I loved it. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh,
I was
awesome.
like Black Lightning. I don't know why. You know, Black Lightning kind of had the Nightwing outfit before Nightwing had
Well,
the
that's
Nightwing
designed
outfit.
by
George
the
Perez.
amazing artist Trevor Von Eden.
I
Incredible
loved-
artist when
yeah.
he was 16. So.
Trevor Von Eden when he was doing Thriller with Robert Lauren Fleming.
yeah.
That was some crazy
That's some
work.
awesome stuff.
But yeah, I don't know. That wasn't part of Minor Mutations. I was just thinking about it because we didn't talk about it last week. But
was a good
man,
trailer.
I want to see it. Doesn't it look good?
Yeah.
Jeremy, anything pop off to you?
Yeah, you guys have totally covered the Dread thing, and I thank you for that. That gives me time to mention other things because I emulate everything you guys are saying about Dread. Dread was fantastic. Carl Urban has wanted to have Dread too, so I mean,
Yes.
I would like to see him still
He's got the
continue on.
perfect down,
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
when
Just
he-
from here, you never
it's the
see his
perfect-
face.
Yeah.
You look ready. It's fantastic, dude. It's like it was one of my favorite movies that year. The fact that Fassbender's coming back as Magneto in Dark Phoenix. At first, they were like, Dark Phoenix is going to be. We're going to soft reboot the entire thing, and then we're having the game. What's her name? Who's playing
Sophie
Jean?
Turner.
Sophie Turner. So we're having Sophie Turner again. We're having well, heck, it's a sequel. You know, so like, who are we kidding? It's a sequel. Whether or not McAvoy comes back, I need to know that because the entire saga without the same Professor Xavier
X is
probably
back.
McAvoy.
is back.
Oh, he is back.
He's
as official?
confirmed, yeah.
All right. Well, it's a sequel. There you go. And James Wan producing a Resident Evil movie. Now, I have not been a fan of the Resident Evil movies because I was a fan of the games. But when you get a guy as a producer who has directed straight up horror movies, I feel like they know the direction they need to take Resident Evil. The fact that they're like, we want to make 6. Let's land 1 and then see what happens. But that's the interesting thing for me is the fact that they might take Resident Evil in an actual horror movie direction. I like that.
I think it's definitely going to go more into the horror direction than the action.
Yeah,
direction.
right. Should.
For me, the Dark Universe announcement. I mean, there's a picture online that you can see where it's basically Johnny Depp, it's Javier Bardem, it's Russell Crowe, it's Tom Cruise, and it's Sophia Boutella who's playing the Mummy. It's all of them just kind of hanging out in a room. And it's like, that's where the Dark Universe announcement came from. You're like, what the hell is this? So you're like, yeah, Depp is playing the Invisible Man. Javier Bardem is playing, I think he's playing the monster from Frankenstein.
Right.
He's not Dr. Frankenstein. He said, no, I'm straight up the monster. So what are they going to do with this universe? I like that the latest trailer, little featurette or whatever, they released the Prodigium, which is Jekyll's little like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., area where it's like, this is where I've been studying the strange mutations. You're like, this is the beginning of this whole thing. For myself, I don't mind that. Like when I first heard, they're like, whoever the Universal honcho is, like, we're gonna make a Marvel universe. I was like, screw off. When I first heard that, it irritated me. I was like, they're gonna make a Marvel universe. What are they doing? But now it makes sense to me. It's like that they're trying to tie in their monsters into the same world so that all of the monsters can occupy a shared universe where you could possibly in 3 or 4 years see a Dracula versus the Mummy versus the Wolfman versus, they probably wouldn't call it that, they'll be calling it Dark Universe or whatever, but I like that idea. What are your thoughts? Do you like the idea of the Dark Universe?
I have to say that one of the coolest things that I've seen is that trailer they put out yesterday, dropped for the Dark Universe. What they did was this brilliant montage of all the original Universal monster movies from the 30s. All the black and white, all the original. It's so good. I was watching this trailer going, and all these millennials like, when is this black and white stuff? I don't like this. It was so good. Like I grew up watching
hang on a sec,
Frankenstein and
Robert.
Dracula.
Not all millennials sound like they have the other ones I've heard talk like this. Some of them talk like I'm just kidding, millennials. Just kidding.
It's true. We should look. I am so tired of hearing people talk about, I'm not going to watch old movies. Listen, man, when I was a kid growing up, I watched anything. The Twilight Zone was in black and white. I did not watch it because it was black and white. I mean, Universal monster movies were in black and white. That's how they were made. If you haven't watched the original Frankenstein, now they're boring and slow.
It made them extra creepy that they were in black and white.
That's right.
Exactly.
So
That's
true.
exactly right.
Are you kidding?
They're so good. If you're not watching Creature from the Black Lagoon, if you're not watching Dracula, if you're not watching Bride of Frankenstein, Bill Condon's going to do Bride of Frankenstein? Come on. You got to watch this stuff. Kids, young adults, 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, watch where these movies came from because there's such a joy in them.
Robert,
I talk to horror fans who don't know what Hammer
you know what it
movies
is?
are.
I think
Come
the
on.
modern audience is afraid of black and white films. That's what it is. It's got to be fear because we talk about them all the time. And if you're not watching it, I'm not saying you're stupid. It must be because you're afraid. Don't fear black and white. It's like you're entering a different world. That's how I would. What Bride of Frankenstein is one of the greatest sequels to a movie ever made, the original Frankenstein. So, I mean, that we get so many of these incredible films. Don't let fear stop you from enjoying the past.
That
That's my
trailer
little-
is so good, by the way. Just watch the trailer. Tell me you don't want to see those movies. So good.
Anything else from Minor Mutations that we didn't cover besides Lockjaw, that adorable picture of that giant dog? Anybody?
I'm binging Twilight Zone in my head now that you mentioned it. It's one of the best shows ever
Yeah,
made.
listen to Jeremy Jahns, the original Twilight Zone, also in black and white. Don't
Those
be afraid.
Blu-rays are unbelievable.
I haven't seen them on
They're the
Blu-ray.
most incredible because they retransfer them.
Oh,
It's
that's-
unbelievable.
Every
Yeah,
New Year's
fucking
Eve
go.
and 4th of July, they come on a binge of like 48 hours or 24 hours. And it's like, all right, no one's changing the TV ever.
Yeah,
And
that's great.
I find myself, I'm drawn to watching the same episodes. I watch To Serve Man. I
Right.
end up watching the same ones I've seen forever. Why? Because they're awesome. Let's talk about some non-awesome news, the passing of Rich Buckler. So Rich Buckler passed away after fighting cancer for a while. I want to give a moment of reflection for his work as an incredible comic book artist. I first encountered his work on the Fantastic Four when he was drawing Darkhoth, the weird purple demon who worked with Dr. Doom and all this other kind of stuff. And being a giant Kirby fan as a little kid, that I loved that Rich Buckler emulated Kirby. And I didn't realize there was a lot of irritation within the community of swiping and this and that, but that's what kind of the artists were directed to do that. They were told, use this kind of art, swipe from this, make sure it looks like this. It was a sales technique because Kirby was not on the Fantastic Four anymore. Rich Buckler also was the co-creator of Deathlock, not Death Clock, Deathlock. And he's going to be missed. Anybody want to give any other thoughts, Nicola? Rich
I never
Buckler?
met Rich, but he's one of those artists that whether you're familiar with, you think you're familiar with his work or not, you've definitely seen his work. You know, it's one of those ones where it's so. I think that the period of time that his sort of career spans and the amount of titles and iconic characters that he worked on, there's just no way that you're not familiar with his art style. You
Yeah.
can pick it straight away.
Definitely. Robert?
Well, I mean, I loved Deathlock was one of my favorite characters when I was a kid. You know, and he was a precursor to everything. He's been ripped off so much. I mean, the whole idea of Deathlock, the Terminator. I'm sure
Oh, yeah.
James Cameron had a little Deathlock in there, and he also did some great Avengers work that I liked. So you know, it's sad that.
Yeah, most definitely. I still have all my original Fantastic Fours, you know, that Rich Buckler did, because I have most of the Fantastic Fours. But he's, like I said, he's going to be missed. Jeremy?
Yeah, I don't know the names of the artists as much as you guys do, but I'm glad you said that. You're like, even if you don't know his work, you've seen his work, you know? I mean, and I know Deathlock. I saw him like, oh, yeah, dude, there was we all had that friend in junior high who had everything Marvel, and that's how I got my Marvel overload, because I just had TV, and he's like, no, here's the real stuff. You know, it was Mini Schnepp. If I could go back in time, I would name him Mini Schnepp. But yeah, he had a bunch of Deathlock stuff.
Was he like the first comic's free?
Yeah,
You
no.
I'm the
He
comic
gave me
book
his
dealer.
You remember the cards? You remember the cards that were going to be worth so much money? He gave me all his duplicates. They're worth nothing, but they're great. I still have them. But fuck cancer. That's the moral of the story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. So a
Seriously.
moment of reflection for Rich Buckler. And when you get a chance, please definitely Google Rich Buckler and check out some of his amazing artwork online. You could always get his art at any comic book store. There's tons of reprints. There's tons of original comics that are available in the back issue bins. Go to your local comic book store, support your local comic book store, and get some Rich Buckler comic books. You know who else is doing comics? Right here, this woman right here, Nicola Scott. We are on the spotlight for Nicola Scott. Let's check out some of her incredible art. There she is. Now, Nicola, how did you get involved in drawing comics?
Man, I came to comics ass backwards because I didn't really have comics as part of my life when I was growing up, but I had superheroes thanks to, you know, Linda Carter and Christopher Reeve and Adam West and the Super Friends cartoon. So I was drawing superheroes when I was, you know, young. And very occasionally I would see a comic book and it would either be like a Marvel character like the Hulk or Thor that just didn't speak to me at all, or it would be the Justice League, and I'd think, why is it called the Justice League and not the Super Friends? And they'd be surrounded by all these characters that I didn't know. I'd be like, who the fuck is Black Canary? I don't get it. They've got it wrong. Completely not understanding that the comics were actually the
Were you like,
source
where are the
material.
Wonder Twins?
Yeah,
They're supposed to
I-
turn into a hawk with some water.
Where's Gleek?
Where's Gleek, man?
Or
I don't
Wendy
get it.
Marvin.
Right, the original.
The
Yeah,
original.
where was the whole of Justice? So I didn't have an entry point. And it wasn't until I was kind of nearing my 30th birthday, having a career crisis, and trying to work out what the hell I was going to do with the rest of my life. And I'd spent a good 18 months sort of dwelling on the things that I can do and how I could use them. And just one morning, sort of considering the situation again, it was like, I've got it down to drawing. I'm going to do something with drawing. What can I do with drawing? And one morning with my tea and toast, I was like, if I had to draw the same thing all day, every day, because that's what a job is, what do I want to draw? And I was like, God, I wish I could just draw Wonder Woman, because, I always just scribble Wonder Woman. And straight away I was like, holy shit, that's a job that someone has right now. They're drawing Wonder Woman right now. That's the job. They're getting paid. They're working comics full of superheroes. I love superheroes. I never grow out of superheroes. I'm going to draw comic books. And within 20 minutes, I was at a comic book store just buying everything. I started chatting to the guy who worked behind the counter, who's now one of my best mates. And, he and all the people that I started meeting sort of became my geek family, who I just didn't have any geek friends prior to this point. And it sort of changed the whole direction of my life. And so I sort of pursued it quite aggressively from that point, and I spent the next 4.5 years kind of coming to San Diego Comic-Con, doing bits and pieces of work, and just sort of treating it like a pretty full-on apprenticeship. I sold my car, I moved out of my apartment, everything that I could to sort of consolidate. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Well, I feel like I was a little older and a little more desperate. So it was like, there's no way I'm taking no for an answer. I need to get into this. So from like a point of zero idea to getting a monthly book at DC Comics took me about 4.5 years, which isn't too bad.
That's really impressive.
Yeah, it really is.
And there has not been a moment since that very first second where I've doubted the decision.
No, were you aware of comic art? Like, did you, before you decided to pursue comics as a living, were you aware of comic artists? And when you went in and met these geek friends of yours at the comic store, did they give you things that you were particularly influenced by?
Well, to start off with, I literally sort of did a scour of the store of everything that had Wonder Woman in it and anything that I liked the art of, just so I could sort of see what people produce.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that was kind of a fascinating education, because I'd see things from like Adam Hughes, which really spoke to me, to Alex Ross that really spoke to me, to George Perez that really spoke to me, and that within that there is quite a lot of extreme in terms of,
Right.
all three are incredibly talented people.
Totally.
But the results of their work is so diverse. And I found that really fascinating. And coming from a painting background, I started painting. It was like,
Oh, wow.
Alex Ross is making a career out of painting comics. I'm going to do that. Which was, a very quick education is that I can't do that. It's such a unique skill to not only paint that kind of photorealistically, but paint in that volume and that sort of be able to panel after panel after panel, keep that consistency. That's crazy. But that sort of started my education. But what I feel like I really learned, and it was a decision point for me, was where I realized, okay, I don't want to be a pinup artist or a cover artist, which is where I sort of felt like was a safe place to sort of point myself.
Mm-hmm.
It became clear to me after about a year that no, I want to do interiors, because I'm not good enough to ride on doing pinup stuff like and covers like someone like Adam Hughes, who's so good at it. And for me, the value that I was sort of finding and learning that I was really appreciating was I love the storytelling.
Mm-hmm. I
I love the sort of subtle character moments. I love how you can really influence the flow of an emotional resonance of a scene and a page just by how you break down the page, how you break down, your comic grid. Scott McCloud's book, Understanding Comics, was like my education.
was going to ask you, did you take specific comic book pages and then redraw them, but in your own version? Like,
Yeah.
if I had the script, this is how I would attack it.
That was how my very early portfolio pieces were. That was how Greg Rucker and Gal Simone kind of discovered me online, because I had redrawn quite a long scene from one of Greg's Wonder Woman run, original Wonder Woman run. Because I felt like, Wonder Woman was my favorite character,
Sure.
and I felt like I could bring something to the character that maybe wasn't present. and that was certainly my early portfolio pieces until I started getting enough work to be able to regularly fill and replace my portfolio.
Now, this is fantastic news for any of you who are watching, who are, current younger artists or writers, or who haven't decided yet whether they want to make that jump. Doesn't even matter how old you are. You could be like old like me, and you're like 50s. I'm an old man. I just started writing comics. It's never too late to draw or write comics. Look at what she did. She basically was like, you know what? I want to do this. This is something I've decided to do. I fully committed. You fully committed, which is a scary jump. You jumped.
It is.
You jumped in.
Well, it was
And
kind
did
of
the
out
research.
of desperation too.
And put in the time.
Yeah.
Thanks.
4.5
Perseverance is one of the keys to success.
Yeah, look at the amount of kids that I see come through with portfolios that sort of want some advice. I tend to be a pretty easy target. They sort of, I'm pretty sort of accommodating at conventions, and I think people are certainly in Australia where there are very few of us sort of creating in the mainstream market. I'm a good go-to, and I'm always asking, how old are you? And they're all, anywhere between 15 and, somewhere in their 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, you're a baby. You can do this. You can do this. But it actually takes some serious commitment. You've got to really jump in there and get your hands dirty and understand that it takes a lot of work. Every creative industry is surrounded by people who want in. And the people that get in aren't just the ones who can draw well or are talented, whatever the creative field might be. They're the ones that have the tenacity to continue to pursue, but also sort of create their own content,
Yeah, it's very important, and I think you did it the right way. Especially like whenever I see them youngsters or 15 or in their 20s, you're a youngster. If you're in your 20s, you're a baby. I always tell them, why don't you go have sex and listen to rock and roll? Get
Be
drunk.
a young person.
Yeah, be a
There
young
are
person.
things to do.
Why don't you relax and stop getting so sweaty about like, I need to have a career. Relax. You'll have
I
a
didn't
career.
know what I was doing in my 20s.
Yeah.
I was faffing around.
Enjoy yourself.
It's
Being cute and dumb.
You guys remember that "Everybody's Free to Wear Sunscreen" by Baz Luhrmann? He would
Yeah.
he said, don't worry if you don't know what you want to do in your life. The most interesting people I know didn't know what they wanted to do when they were 20 or something like that. But I love the fact of your story is that you just did it. You're just like, well, I'm going to do this, and it's not a get rich quick scheme. Nothing worth doing is a get rich quick scheme. You're going to do it, and you're going to be like, oh, I guess mac and cheese does taste good because I have to do that for about 5 years, and you're going to keep doing it. But again, perseverance, and it's just all about taking the first step and then the next and then the third. So many people are like, well, I want to do that. I kind of tried it, but like you said, you committed.
Yeah.
So good job on that.
Certainly, I
Fantastic.
feel like one of the advantages that I had was because comics wasn't part of my childhood, I didn't have that sort of emotional pressure. I feel like that tends to cripple a lot of people along the way, that, they'll go to their first convention having sort of, read comics and really wanted to write or draw them their whole lives, and they will go and their first critique is a little rough and they're devastated and they never want to do it again. And it's like, my first critique was a hot mess because my portfolio was ridiculous.
Now, what is your background? Did you go to art school? How did you begin painting?
My mother was an artist and my grandmother was an artist, so art was, part of the culture of growing up. And so it was my mum that kind of taught me, lots of the art rules, and she would take me to life drawing classes when I was really little.
Oh, wow.
So, that was kind of very separate, and I never went to art school. I was an actor. That was kind of where all my training was. And, I was sort of, through my teens and my 20s, sort of, that was where my career was, and it just wasn't getting anywhere. And probably round about the time where I was starting to look my age, because I always looked older than I was round about the time that I'd burnt myself out. And that was when I needed to sort of put that in a box and put it away and go, what else can I do?
Well, what are you doing right now? What's your current comic you're drawing?
Okay. So Wonder Woman for me is done, though I do have the Wonder Woman annual coming out. I don't know. It's either this week or next week. And then I'm back on to Greg's and my creator-owned series, which is Black Magic. And so we put that on hiatus to do our Wonder Woman Year One story. And Black Magic comes out next month. issue 6 comes out next month, and we're going to keep rolling ahead. And
Awesome.
that is like we were talking about with black and white movies. This is a black and white comic. I fully paint the thing. So it's all sort of grayscale.
Wow.
And we call it a cult noir. So it's like a
Love it.
witch story within
I'm
a
in.
detective story.
All right, get that. Are the first 5 available on Amazon?
Yeah, and they're traded, so they're good to go. Out
Get
from
that
Image.
trade. It's called Black Magic. It's Greg Rucka,
Yep.
Nicola Scott. Check that out. Buy that. Sell that thing out right now. Order that right now. You know what else you can order? I'm doing a book, not a comic book. It is a verse novel, is what I'm calling it. It's called Isolated Mutations of the Assembly Line Baby. It's a lot of stuff I started writing 25 years ago and continued writing. It's a really weird self-help book. It's how to change your mind, literally change your mind. You're going to have to get into it. It's a neogeneticist. It's a brand new way of thinking. Check out this book. Go to my Kickstarter. The link is right down there. You can pre-order the book. I'm going to have them at the San Diego Comic-Con. You can pre-order it. I'll have the signed book there to pick it up. Check out that link. Support my weirdo book. That's my pimpage for today. Let's get into the Twitter questions. And the first one is from The Lane is Real, asking, if Deathstroke doesn't appear in the Batman film, would he be a better villain for the Nightwing or Teen Titans film? And I say, hell yes. That's where I first encountered Deathstroke, as well as Terra and all these other amazing characters was in the Marv Wolfman, George Perez Teen Titans run. How about you guys? What do you think?
Yeah, I think Deathstroke could fit in a DC movie. Generally speaking, he can go up against any person or collection of DC characters, and really you'll get Deathstroke Prime. You know, it doesn't have to be Batman. I would love to see him with Nightwing or Teen Titans. Yeah, I think he'd be great.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think he's permeated the whole DC universe sufficiently now to be really appropriate anywhere. You know, I think if they made him exclusively a Teen Titans villain, it's like sort of making Darkseid a Jimmy Olsen character, because that's where he first appeared. You know,
Right,
it's like
totally.
You know, the character is bigger than just Teen Titans, but you know, the fans would really appreciate it, and he's such a great character that,
Definitely.
you know, I'd love to see him anywhere.
Robert?
Of course. I mean, Teen Titans, that's where I encountered him too. But I love him as a Batman villain. I love him because he's the anti-Batman.
Yeah.
You know, they're basically two sides of the same. In the same way that Batman and Joker, Batman and Deathstroke are different. More of they're international. I don't see the Jokers ever getting on a plane. But Deathstroke travels everywhere.
Yeah.
You know,
He's probably
on the
Can
block
you imagine
list, yeah.
Joker going through TSA, like going through security?
Yeah, little problems with these chattering teeth. Wait, everyone's
Yeah,
gassed.
yeah. It's just, where you going,
Yeah.
buddy?
All right, next question comes from Josh Haynes, and he asks, do you guys think that Carnage will appear in the Sonyverse? Who would you cast as Carnage? I pick Chris Pine. Well,
That's
I'm gonna cast Crispin Glover. Who are you gonna cast?
Nice, Crispin Glover.
Yeah,
like
that's
back
better.
that's actually really
Mine is weird.
Yeah.
He's too
stocky.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's too short and stocky. I would have back in the day cast Sting from Dune. You look at the cover
Ooh.
of Dune, you're like, oh, that's Cletus Cassidy, and
Definitely.
then you move on.
How about you, Robert?
That's a great. No, you know, Doug Jones. I
Nice.
want to see Doug Jones's face. You know, he's playing Saru in Star Trek Discovery. I want to see Doug Jones's face. I think, you know, you could just with makeup. You don't have to have prosthetics. He could do the weird
Oh, yeah.
face thing. I'd love to see that.
Maybe Eddie Redmayne if he doesn't do a weird
You got
voice.
anybody?
He's a little Joker.
No, I like these guys.
Yeah,
All right.
you're like, yeah, what?
Yeah, what they said.
All right. Next question is from Will DeVille Movies. Asks, should the DCEU use some of the new Injustice 2 storyline with Brainiac for one of the Justice League movies? Thoughts? Well, like we were sweating out earlier, you can watch this YouTube Injustice 2 movie, and it's got Brainiac. It's got the actual, you know, the skull ship floating around. It's got all these a really cool rendition of Brainiac. I don't know what kind of actor they were using, you know, take a little bit of this guy's forehead, this dude's chin, but it's like definitely looks like a person.
Yeah.
Brainiac needs to be in the cinematic universe
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah, we've
if
been
he's
begging
not
for it.
even in Justice League, he needs to be in Man of Steel. They just, you know, it's one of those amazing characters that just should be there by now and isn't. And it's like, okay, if we're making all these movies, for the love of God, get Brainiac out there.
Yeah, Robert, how about you?
Yeah. I mean, you know, we say that, of course, why not? I love what I've seen. I haven't gotten to the end of it yet, but it's so good. I mean, the thing about these, you sometimes feel that the video game creators are spending more time contemplating the storylines than the people writing the screenplays are.
Right.
You know, because they're fans. Like, the problem is there's always these people that come to these movies and they're not fans, so they don't know the lore. and then we as lifelong fans just are subjected to, we know that they didn't spend enough time with the creators who are like Wonder Woman to me looks like they spent a long time delving into the characters, many incarnations and her entire history, that we're getting all of that.
Yeah.
You can tell that from the very beginning, you could tell that. But so often I don't feel that way, as with Star Trek Discovery. But, what can you say?
All right, we got to roll in. We're going to do rapid fire, a couple of live Twitter questions because we're running over time. Here we go. Jacek Hadjic asks, what are some comic book titles that are no longer in print that you miss the most?
Yikes.
Yeah, that's a Street Fighter. I can't think of any comic books that
I
aren't
will
in
say
print that are
one,
gone.
Machine Man. Immediately start making that.
Sandman. Neil Gaiman's
Ooh.
Sandman.
Oh,
My
okay.
favorite
Well, shoot.
comic of all time.
Yeah.
Well, shoot. If you're going there, you're going actual like crazy literary stuff. I got to compete with that. Now you hit it.
I actually cried when Morpheus became Daniel. Sorry.
All right.
That's
no,
becoming
don't
TV, right?
It should
is that
be.
not being
They
developed
should.
for
Neil
TV at the
Gaiman,
moment?
Brian Fuller should do it. I mean, they could spin it out of America, but I miss Sandman so much.
Yeah.
But Overture.
All right,
was
here's a
great.
question for Nicola.
Oh,
To Nicola, I love your work on Secret Six. What was it like working with Gail on that series?
That was the second time Gail and I had worked together, and what was great about it, if you're not familiar with the characters, it's a bunch of D-list Batman villains that have decided crime doesn't pay and they go mercenary. And they fight amongst themselves quite a bit. What was great about it was that through our run, we actually went through editors pretty quickly because we were kind of being bumped around. And so no one was paying attention, and it's meant to be a bit of a subversive sex, drugs, and rock and roll book.
Mm-hmm.
And, sort of Gail and I, left to our own devices, were a little bit, let's make this really violent and really sexy and really gross. And what came out of that was a lot of fun. I'm an artist that can't help but see subtext in everything, whether it's appropriate or not. And in Secret Six, it was absolutely appropriate to elevate any potential subtext there. And so I would just, highlight subtext nonstop. And it made for a really sort of fun, ridiculous series.
Awesome. That question was from Taylor Pector.
Thanks,
and
Taylor.
let's see. Here's from Two Shoes. Do you think there will be a Suicide Squad 2? And if so, will the Joker be in and the same style of Joker? I think they're going to keep Jared Leto. I don't see why they would change out. What do you guys think?
It's all about if Jared Leto will do it. Wasn't he a little apprehensive? Like, I don't know if I'm gonna do the next one, or am I just hearing things wrong or remembering things wrong? I don't know. Suicide Squad was a little divisive. It's a coin flip as to whether or not all of it. It's a coin flip to Suicide Squad 2. It's a coin flip for Jared Leto coming back as the Joker. So that exponentially stacks in terms of probability. Don't know.
Yep. I think that's a good answer. Anybody got anything else?
Yeah, I don't think we saw enough of him in the film.
I
Not at
agree
all.
100%. I
Yeah.
think it was like criminal
Yeah.
that we didn't see more Joker.
The fact that he wasn't the bad guy
Yeah, that
was
was
very strange.
it was kind of nutty because you saw the trailer. You're like, obviously they're gonna have to all team up to fight the Joker. Wrong. You're gonna have to fight some weird enchanted girl
Where was
dancing.
the Justice League during that?
Yeah. All right. Well, that leaves us with only one last thing to do. It's the sweaty question of the week. Comes from Ben Berkowitz, says I destroy your name. We've seen some crazy shit like Ego the Living Planet, Howard the Duck, and Sneepers in the MCU. Will we ever see Spider-Ham?
Spider-Ham.
Spider-Ham does whatever a Spider-Ham
does.
Eats some pork, maybe not, because he's part of a pig. Let's go. Come on. There goes the Spider-Ham. That's it for our show. And I'd like to thank Nicola Scott, coming all the way from Australia to be on Collider Heroes and also to see Wonder Woman. Where
Thanks.
can people find you online, Nicola?
You can find me online, all the social media are at Nicola Scott Art, and in the comic book stores.
Definitely check out, what is your comic again?
Black Magic.
Black Magic with Greg Rucka. Get that trade paperback. Jeremy, where can people find you?
You can find me at Jeremy Jahns on YouTube, Twitter, the rest of the internet. You can find my show Awesome-tacular on Go90 with Schnepp. We talk comic books. We talk a lot of sweaty, nerdy, fun stuff. And we didn't actually answer the Spider-Ham question. I'm going to say no to Spider-Ham.
Yeah.
Robert, where can people find you online?
I'm gonna say no to Spider-Ham 2. Actually, I'm gonna second all of your opinions.
What,
of
the
that.
sequel, Spider-Ham 2?
No, please, no. You can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or on Instagram at RMBurnett, or on Facebook at Robert Meyer Burnett.
I'm going to say yes to Spider-Ham, but only if he's the villain to Venom in the Tom Hardy Venom. He needs a very thick villain. Spider-Ham would do well. You can find me on social medias, just at Jon Schnepp. Like I said, the Kickstarter, Isolated Mutations, the assembly line baby. I'm going to be pimping that for the next month. Help me get my weirdo verse novel printed. Support it, and I'll see you guys next week.
Hey guys, if you like this video, click the thumbs up button. Also, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It'll help you stay up to date with everything we've got going on here at Collider.